Well, hey, welcome to the Grow Your Camp podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Carl.
And by the way, we're actually in Carl's office in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in the Prove and Grow office. He's in one room, I'm in the other. And we just want to welcome you to episode 8. Now, if you are a camp director, executive director, you report to a board, you have to build budgets, you have growth desires, but maybe some constraints. Today's episode is going to be a delight for you because we have Bob Briscoe, Executive Director of the Williamsburg Christian Retreat Center. And today we have a marketing tip from Carl. We try to start every episode with a tip that you can use tomorrow. So, Carl, lay it on us.
All right. Today's quick marketing tip is turning past guests into your next booking engine. So, one thing that's interesting when I meet with camps, a lot of them are talking to me because they're trying to find out how to reach more new people. And we help them do that. But one of the questions I always ask is, what are you doing to stay in touch with the people you already are in contact with? People who have come and camped at your facility before, people who have stayed as an overnight guest group before, retreat planners that you've worked with, donors, all those kind of things. That list of people that have interacted with your camp in the past is a gold mine. These are people that are more likely to donate if you are seeking donations. These are people that are more likely to sign up for another experience if they've already been at your camp. And these are also people that would happily refer you to other people that might need a camp or need a place to stay or be looking for a nonprofit to support. And also just practically re-engaging people that you've already worked with before. Your ability to reach out and communicate to them is more effective and it's cheaper. With a basic email system like MailChimp or Constant Contact and a list and writing some words down in an email, you can be communicating with 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 people, depending on how big your list is. But like I said, I found out that a lot of camps just don't have a regular cadence of staying in touch with their list. This could look like doing a monthly newsletter, just keeping people up to date with what's going on at the camp and then promoting something relevant at that time of year. Or it could look more targeted, like if you're looking to fill space in the retreat center side of things in a soft period of the year, you can reach out to groups that do events at that time of year. Or if you have a particular week of camp, say your middle school camp isn't quite as full as you'd like it to be, you could send out an email to parents who have sent their kids to your middle school camp before. Yeah, so my main message for you today is if you are sitting on a list of people that have stayed at your facility before and you aren't regularly finding ways to stay in communication with them, that's a gold mine of an opportunity. Start thinking about, get with your team, think about different ways you can reach out to them. I would just give you some quick tips. Segment your list. Don't send the same message to everybody. Don't overwhelm people. Don't send emails every day. And just keep it simple, keep it personal, keep it conversational. These are people who have had a good experience with your camp. They will enjoy hearing from you as long as you keep things light and keep it conversational. So yeah, just as a closing motivation, you may feel like you need to get in front of a lot more new people, and maybe you do, but don't forget about the people that you already know. Think about sending out an email to people that are on your list with a good call to action.
Thanks, Carl. Let's make sure we stay in relationship with those people that we've served in the past. So excellent, Carl. Thank you. All right, Bob. Well, welcome to the podcast. We're really
Thank you.
glad to have you here.
Good to be
You
here.
have led Williamsburg Christian Retreat Center. How long?
For a little while. I've been an executive director since 2008, but I was here since 2000.
Goodness,
Yeah,
26
I'm the old
years.
guy
All right.
here.
I think we're all the old guy. Well, maybe Carl's
Yeah.
not, but I was I was at a graduation party recently, and I had a friend of mine my age was in the corner. He and I were talking, and I said, "Look around. Everybody's younger than us. Do you realize we're the old guys in the room? We're the
Yep.
guys in the corner now." Well, I've heard a lot about you over the years through 3CA and seminars, and Carl's told me about some of your story. What I'm really interested today is to go through those meaningful seasons of growth that you've experienced. Because I think a lot of camp leaders, like I have been and like you are going to see themselves in your story. and I'm excited to unpack what changed, why it changed, and what other folks can learn from it. You ready to go, Bob?
I think so. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, for Carl and I, we do this podcast. Yes, it's a part of what we do in our work and life and businesses, but it's all rooted in a story that happened in camp. And for mine, I was 14 and was dragged to camp by my mom. For Carl, he had various experiences. Bob, what are some of the early roots, the early seeds of your camp story?
Great question. So I put my faith in Jesus as a 10th grader, and I had been transplanted from Northern Virginia, Fairfax County to Houston, Texas. So everything was kind of new. It was a cultural shock a little bit. But just after I had begun my relationship with the Lord, my best friend Tom said, "Hey, would you like to go backpacking in Colorado?" And to anybody who lives in Houston, Texas in the summertime,
Boy,
that's a no-brainer. You're going. So I said, "Absolutely, let's do this." And we went to the Navigators Eagle Lake Camp, and
I
a
know that.
wonderful, yeah, wonderful 2-week backpack trip up there. Totally loved it. I ended up going back again after my junior year of high school. And then I worked both after my sophomore and junior year in college. I worked as a trail guide instructor up there, leading backpack trips, and it was the most awesome thing in the world. But as a camper, I had been inspired by these college guys that were our trail guides. Basically learning the basics of the Christian life. How to read scripture, how to have time with the Lord, how to memorize scripture, and how to walk with God.
Wow, that's so encouraging. And now the ripple effect of your life as in leadership, training up those same kinds of folks, just like you experienced.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the power of camp. I'm just grateful that you had done that. Okay, so you know how when people go to conferences, like, who are you? How big's your camp? How many beds? Blah 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 blah. Everybody wants to know those kind of basic questions for shaping. So tell us about Williamsburg Retreat Center. How many beds are there?
Yeah, I think we have 200 pillows.
200 pillows.
Yeah, we have a
Uh,
the double bed, queen bed. Yeah, queen beds have 2 pillows, but yeah, about that. But 100, our capacity is about 150.
okay, adult or youth focused?
Yeah, both. So 2 of our lodging facilities are hotel style and 2 are bunk bed style. So we've got a 24-room hotel building, a 6-bedroom cottage that are hotel style, and then the cabin, the bunk bed style are, we have a cabin village of 5 cabins, and then we have a cottage called Laurel Cottage that has 32 bunk beds.
Right. You have program and guest groups?
Yeah, mostly guest groups except for summer camp, and then we do a winter retreat, and we do quilting retreats. I sometimes call up my friends, in Colorado that are still there doing high adventure rafting trips, and they say, "What's up, Bob?" And I say, "Well, I'm getting ready for the quilting retreat." Yeah, a little bit different vibe, but it's all good.
Do you
Man.
invite your friends to come join you at the quilting retreat, Bob?
My friends
And
from Colorado usually don't come.
yeah. Yeah, I have multiple clients, camp clients that serve quilters. 40 in a big room with all the equipment, and
It's
they're eager
yeah,
to serve.
it's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's not the most profitable thing, but it is. It's midweek.
It's a way to get pay for keeping the lights on in the winter.
Yeah, and who is your primary audience? Who do you serve primarily? Is it denominations, all things, churches? Who's your
Yeah.
primary audience?
Yeah, it's very it's churches, definitely, and Christian schools. So we just had Fredericksburg Christian School 8th graders depart. I think they might have been coming here for 20 years. It's been a long-standing partnership, but yeah, those would be our main clients across the denominational spectrum, though. So we're a Mennonite camp, but we're very interdenominational in our scope.
Do you get Mennonite support, or is that just in the history of the camp?
We do get Mennonite support. Yeah, we're not funded by the denomination, but there are some very generous Mennonites that that believe in our mission and support us very heavily.
That's great. Do you, off the top of your head, do you know kind of the revenue breakdown? Is it 80% camper fees, 20% donations, or somewhere like that?
That's what I usually say, but I think it's more like 85-15 uh,
Yeah.
breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah. I think most camp leaders can relate to that.
Mhm.
We need to charge enough to pay for camp and use donations for capital improvements and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
So take us back to before you started this journey. What was the situation at camp in terms of bookings and occupancy and overall growth?
Yeah, good question. So, maybe a preface to that. I am not really a numbers guy, and to a fault. So, some executive directors out there, and I know Mark, you're one of them, or previously one of them, are highly analytical and tracking all kinds of things. And I'm more the English major kind of guy. But I will tell you this: the 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 thing that was going on, well, first of all, we had been in the red, uh, until, like, 2014, 2015, when we had a board president that came in and said, "Hey, this isn't really how you're supposed to do this." And, we ended up actually shaving off some of our programmed retreats. They were kinda spiky as far as attendance, and we would often lose money on them, and so we stopped doing those because we saw that if we could host a group, we could make money instead of lose money, so the net allowed us to get into the black. So that was
Mm.
one of the things, but I think the word spiky comes to mind a lot. So our bookings were also spiky. So we would have just a wonderful run of several full weekends and then crickets. And we couldn't quite figure out why.
Mm. And and it's interesting. You identified program camps that weren't working. They go up, they go down. They don't pay for themselves. On paper, guest groups or retreat groups are more profitable. Program costs more money to market and to produce. I think most of us in the audience and in the room recognize that you have to make some hard choices. Um, so, what were some of the biggest challenges or frustrations that happened when this new board chairman came in and said, "Let's get in the black"?
Well, yeah, I'd say it was mostly challenges, um, and not as much frustrations. But
Okay.
the change actually worked well, when we started toning back on the programmed retreats, because I actually had a new program director come on who was fairly green, and to say, "Hey, you're in charge of summer camp and, winter retreats and then quilting," was very manageable compared to the previous menu of all the programmed retreats. So that actually worked out well. There was a bit of a downside with some of those retreats because some of the participants wanted us to continue doing the men's retreat, the marriage retreat, the music weekend retreat, and so that was difficult. And, there is a trade-off there also because a lot of those programmed retreats are gonna potentially produce donors, but
Right.
the lag time there is sometimes hard to, endure. But, yeah, I won't say we were, like, in the depths of despair or anything, but we knew we needed to make a change.
So, Bob, if I'm picking up properly, that so cutting off or kind of rationalizing some of the programs, the ones that weren't helping from a cost perspective, that helped you kind of get to a point of stabilization, and then you started focusing on bringing more guest groups in. Um,
Okay.
was that pretty easy in terms of finding more guest groups, or what kind of stuff did you guys have to do to get more guest groups in?
So, yeah, I would say that that wasn't easy, especially with a small staff, and, I guess, wow, I try not to use this term, but fake it till you make it, is relevant.
Yeah.
So doing the fake it till you make it marketing, which you can do a lot on your own. I don't want to discourage anybody. I mean, the item you just shared, Carl, about emails, that's golden. That'll go a long way. But you get, I know for me personally, being able to sustain those things on a small staff when I'm also making sure the pool chemicals are right. I mean, a lot of directors out there wear very many hats. And so, keeping that marketing thing going is often a challenge.
Yeah. When you drop a sacred program,
Oof.
there are going to be people, men, couples, quilters, those who have invested a lot of years. They're gonna come after you. For me, when I was at Sandy Cove, we started shifting some things around, and I had arrows in my back from very upset people from Lancaster County. They're like, "What are you doing to our senior citizen day?" And I learned an interesting phrase from one of my staff. Instead of canceling something or ending it or taking it away, uh, we would say this: "No, but yes." And so we had these overnight senior citizen things, and less were coming. And so instead of saying no more, we said no more of this, but how about we run multiple senior days? You just come down for the day, hear a great speaker, have a good lunch. And it took a minute, but folks were like, "All right, you're not the devil. We don't necessarily like you, but
Well, and another no, but yes, that you might consider is, hey, we're not going to run that certain programmed retreat, but it would probably take just a little bit for me to show you how you could do it yourself, and we'd be happy to
oh."
host that retreat.
So you converted them, kind of created
Yeah.
hybrids.
Well, in some cases, but yeah, yeah, especially the marriage thing, because we offered some assistance with helping groups see that they could use, a DVD series from I forget the guy's name, the Love and Respect. Um, yeah, yeah, and or something like that, and you could have a wonderful time if you maybe provide a worship singer or something like that. So we did a little bit of counseling in that regard.
That's
That's
super helpful. So at what point did you decide, okay, everybody's tapped out, I'm tapped out, we need to bring somebody in from outside to help? I mean, how did you determine the time? It was time and what you needed help with.
Yeah, that's an interesting little story. So, it involved actually 2 contacts with other camps. I was up at Black Rock Retreat, and, I was actually attending the Everence Development Conference up there in Lancaster. But, I was walking around with Peter Fiorello, and, I said, "Hey, Peter, I'm really thinking about hiring a marketing person. Wouldn't that be awesome?" And he said, "No, Bob, that's a bad idea." And I didn't know him too well, but he's like, "No, that's a dumb idea, Bob." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, you can't afford that person. You can't afford to hire the kind of person you really need to do your marketing." And I said, Okay, well, then what?" Because he had just told me, "Well, we turn away 6,000 guests a year." And he had my attention, and he said, "Well, we use a guy named Carl." So that was the second time I had heard Carl's name. So I had been at Refreshing Mountain, and I'd been asking them about their awesome website and all this and how they were so busy and probably also turning away guests. And they had mentioned Carl. So this is the second time I had heard about Carl Lefevre. And so I thought I probably ought to check into this. So that's what motivated me to get in touch with Improve and Grow.
Yeah. So full disclaimer, Bob's camp is a client of Improve and Grow with Carl. And that's why we know his story, because Carl's whole team has been along the journey. So talk about the evaluation process. If someone's looking to get a marketing company, there's plenty of marketing agencies, Inspiring Growth, Improve and Grow. But what does the process look like from an executive director's chair, and how you made a choice?
Yeah. I was looking at that recently and trying to remember. I don't know what it is. Okay, I'm 62. But so the memory is not what it used to be. And then, everything pre-COVID or around that area gets a little fuzzy. But, I know we contacted Carl and his team, and we began to get some information from them and to kind of do an evaluation of where we were at. Um, and I think having the referral from BlackRock and Refreshing Mountain and just seeing the success there, um, it was what largely motivated me, and just knowing that our efforts in the past had been very shotgun and hard to track, and we were seeing a little bit of results, but nothing sustained.
And I remember I was just going to add that I remember when we helped you do that evaluation, Bob, that what we kind of came away from that with is you guys have just a really strong atmosphere there. You have really good loyalty from the people that have been there before. They have a good experience. You had great reviews. Um, but when we use the tools that we use, we just weren't seeing, you just weren't very visible, even within the Williamsburg area, you had a decent amount of visibility if someone would do a search for a retreat center, but even in your immediate vicinity, you weren't quite showing up as well. And then once you got outside of that, like an hour or two out, which is really where your main audience for guest groups would be, right? They're going to travel into you. There wasn't as much visibility there. So I remember just being excited to realize that you've got a good foundational program and services and a really good reputation. I kind of describe it as we just needed to find a way to put gas on the fire that was already burning there by helping you be more visible. So I remember you being excited, but also being a little trepidatious because I believe it might have been the first time you'd made any kind of major investment in marketing outside of sweat and labor inside. And I remember that was a big gulp, right?
Yeah, that's true. It was interestingly easy with the board, as I recall. I guess we laid it out pretty well, but I think the board knew that we hadn't been spending much at all in marketing. They had seen the effective change of reducing the programmed retreats. We'd been doing a lot of renovation of the facility as well. But I think, they were able to see the problem with a lot of spikes in our booking where we had some gaps. And we also needed to upgrade our website. And so with those factors coming together, the need was very, I guess, obvious to them. So it wasn't a
By the
really
way,
hard
is the board an operational board or a policy board?
policy board.
So you needed to get approval within your budget system, or was this ask outside of your budget?
It's basically alongside the budget. Yeah. So yeah.
So you took your budget, added this marketing investment, and they kind of debated its value and so on and so forth. And they just said, approve the budget, and you went forward.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think a lot of executive directors can relate to that process. Um, so then you got the board to say yes. You started. Obviously, COVID. Lots of things happened in that time frame. Um, Once you move forward, what were some of the most important changes or systems that you guys started implementing that you began to see results?
Yeah. Good question. We didn't implement a whole lot of changes on our end. I mean, we had to do a little living into the new website and the new look. Um, and again, we were still doing a lot of renovations. In fact, it was right coming into COVID. We had just completed a mini campaign to raise money to totally renovate our hotel building. And we finished right at the end of February of 2020, just in time for COVID. In fact, we hosted one quilting retreat and then had to shut down. But basically, the big change was answering the phone because it was ringing.
Okay. I'm sorry to laugh, but
Yeah.
that was so funny.
There you go.
And internally, who was answering the phones?
Oh, that'd be Sherry. She's our most amazing reservationist. So,
Okay, that's great. And then what kind of results did you start seeing in terms of phone calls, but also revenue?
yeah, it was a little bit gradual, of course, because we did begin working right in 2020. So it was like May or June of 2020. Improve and Grow had finished our new website. I know we hosted day camp that summer. Not much going on, but some of our very loyal camp families. And then it was. I kind of want to look at my graph, but it was in the following years as we came out of COVID that we began to see things really ramp up. And yeah, we just really saw our gaps begin to disappear. We began to see more midweek business. and we began to experience the positive net income that I'd never seen before.
What was your 25 revenue?
No.
Oh, that's right. You're a teacher. That's
I
okay.
can I can think it would take a while. We're
Okay.
just over 1,000,000, just over a
Okay.
million.
All right. And most camps, according to 3CA, 80% of camps are under $1 million. But did you get so your numbers pre-COVID, how soon after COVID were you able to get back to that number and start growing?
It was probably 22, we saw that, and then definitely 23 was out of this world. We had gone from, in our different lodging areas, I do have some numbers, I wrote them down, but, we were at like 2,000 room nights, per year in our Oakwood Lodge, and then we were at 4,000. I mean,
Hmm.
it was dramatic, and that's our cash
Double.
cow, that's our moneymaker. Our 2 other cottages were about 50% increase, the cabins, um, were at an 86% increase. So going from, like, 1,500 room nights to 2,800 room nights, it was dramatic in 23. I think it was mostly 23, 24.
Yeah. Go team Bob and Carl.
Yeah, my recollection, like 2020, obviously required a lot of changes. What I appreciated about Bob's team is they got really creative about ways to fill the camp. I mean, we had an original plan, which is, hey, we're going to go after overnight guest groups and we're going to fill up the retreat center. And that became a challenge through the rest of 2020 and even part of 2021. I feel like it was like mid 2021 until all of the restrictions on, on large group gatherings really came off.
Yeah.
There were some gatherings you could have, but they had to be smaller. So, I mean, we helped promote family overnight events. We helped promote the RV and the camp center. We helped promote some of those day camps. Um, so I just appreciated just the creativity of the team. I mean, the temptation, I feel like if I were in your chair, Bob, the temptation would be to call up Carl and say, "Hey, let's hit pause on this for a year." But instead it was, "Hey, we need to find other ways to serve people over this time." And I just really appreciated that you and your team got really creative. And I still think that remains to this day. Yeah, you're a lot fuller on the guest group side, but your team is always coming up with new events or new ways to promote the events that you're doing or new ways to get other people to experience the things that you have there, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. Looking ahead, Bob, what are you focused on next to continue the growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, we're still seeing some gaps, and we're getting better at looking ahead at those gaps. In fact, I was, just looking at October, um, and right now our weekends are full in October. October's a beautiful month here. And,
Yeah.
but we've got some midweek availability, and so continuing to reach out, to school groups. So Williamsburg, Virginia is a wonderful place for schools to come visit. They'll go to Williamsburg, Jamestown, Yorktown. They'll visit all the sites. They'll sometimes go to Busch Gardens and enjoy that. Um, but one of the coolest things is we offer a type of lodging that is so much easier for teachers and administrators, chaperones to supervise their kids in a cabin setting or a cottage setting instead of hotel rooms. And we do have hotel rooms, but most of our school groups don't use that. So there's just a lot of good reasons. We just had a school up here from Burlington, North Carolina, that stayed with us, and one of the chaperones was just really impressed with our facility and just the fact that the kids could be supervised well, but also they could come back from touring and run around and just enjoy being outdoors.
Yeah. And that's a big selling point to schools. My goodness. If you make it hard on them, they don't want to come. Okay, so pretend like a camp director's listening right now. They're tuned in, but they're feeling stuck, maybe in a similar place you were at. The numbers weren't working, things weren't growing. What's the one thing you would encourage them to do first?
Yeah, I think just be open to asking for help. Um, interesting thing I hadn't thought of in a while. One of the most encouraging people that I've spoken with for a while is one of the parents of our lifeguards. They have a really big homeschool family, and like all but one of their kids is lifeguard for us. But he's a marketing professor over at William and Mary, and he just boils it down to real simple things sometimes. Just keep trying different things. Um, but but also, I think for me it was just recognizing that, hey, we need help. And I think Peter at BlackRock saying, hey, you can't afford that person, but look, you could outsource, and you could get some really good tailored help from a group that does SEO and website digital marketing.
Yeah, that whole idea of being teachable. I heard someone say, if you want to get somewhere, find out someone who's gone there, ask them
Yep.
to show you how.
Yeah.
And that requires humility and curiosity, both of which I sense are a part of your DNA, Bob. So thank you so much. Now, we're going to ask you the same question. We had an executive director from Ohio. John was on our podcast a few episodes ago, and we asked him, what would you ask the next executive director? And here's his question. If you had an extra $2 million, no, if you had an extra 2 hours, if you had an extra 2 hours in your day, what would you do with that time?
Yeah, so that my first answer was nap, but I thought that was pretty lame. So
No,
no,
the sacred
yeah.
nap. Yes.
No, I'm not that old. But the I have this boat, and we have a reservoir that's literally 10 minutes out the back gate of our retreat center. That's just beautiful. They only allow electric motors, and I have the best sailboat on the reservoir because it's the only sailboat on the reservoir. But and I also row it, so it's very uh, good for my health. So I'd
Therapeutic.
probably spend a little more time on the lake.
Hmm. That's so good. So good. I heard a recent study about pastors, and when they give advice to young pastors, what's the most common thing they say is get a hobby.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
So it's good that you have something to do on a boat. Uh, Incredibly helpful, Bob. Thank you for taking time to invest in other camp leaders. I remember when my first uh, camp leader, Neil Fickthorn from Sandy Cove, took me under his wing, and he said, Mark, you can't minister to empty beds. So we need you to help fill it, which is the mantra of the Grow Your Camp podcast and really my whole life now for the last 34 years of working with camps. But he said, I want you to go to the National Christian Camp and Conference Retreat. And I went and I came back and I was like, man, most of these camps like are really small compared to us. Why are we going to this? And he said, we go to give. We go to give. And what you did today, Bob, was to give generously. Scripture says a generous man will prosper. He who waters will himself be watered. So may you be watered with your generosity. And by the way, Neil just passed away. His funeral is next Thursday, I think. And he, yeah, he was a big inspiration to me, and as you are today, Bob. He actually asked me put a seminar on for all the Christian camps, and we called it "Marketing Without a Marketing Director."
There you go.
And so we did the best we could to help and encourage. All right, well, thank you again. And are we going to ask what your question is now, Carl, or at the end?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Bob, what question do you want us to ask another executive director?
That's tough. What am I going to ask another executive director? So this will be for the next episode.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. What are you doing? Here it is. What are you doing to grow your marriage?
Hmm,
Is
that's
All
that
good.
good?
right, that's going to be the question, and you're going to tease us and tell us one thing you do to grow your marriage, which is.
But yeah, still date. So I have a date with my wife tomorrow. We're going to a new Mexican restaurant that's over on the river. And yeah, you just, intentional time.
Oh, delightful. Thank you so
That's so
much.
good.
Carl?
So good. Yeah, well, hey, listeners, camp leaders, I just want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for the work that you do. I know Mark and I share this value. We want to help as many camps as we can. We love working with camps like Bob directly and helping them grow. And we also love sharing these stories, sharing systems, sharing what has worked. Because some of you don't have the luxury to work with a marketing company right now. You're trying to do it on your own, and we just want to help be part of that solution. I just want to remind you, growth is definitely possible. There is a good market out there, but like we learned from Bob's story today, it often starts with an honest evaluation of where you're at. There's something to be said for keeping going and trying new things like Bob shared. There's also something to be said for stopping and taking a break for a moment, evaluating what is working, what's not working, making the changes you need to make room for growth to happen. So Bob, I just love the story you shared. Thank you so much for coming on. And listeners, we're putting out content like this every week. I would just encourage you, if you got something out of today's episode, share it with another camp leader, share it with your staff, but also subscribe to the podcast so that you get notice when the next one comes up. Help us get the word out. And hey, you can see here we're taking questions from the people we interview. We'd also love to get questions from our audience. We'll put a link to this in the show notes, but if you go to growyourcamppodcast.com, there's a button there called Submit Your Question. You click on that, record a question, and we'll cover it on a future episode.
You might be famous.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you all. Thanks for tuning in today. We look forward to sharing more stories and systems with you again next week, and let's grow together.